When we got the option to go on the tour this afternoon, everybody chose to go on the tour. They didn't want to talk about assurance because that's a bit boring. So I went on the tour as well. But I thought I'd try and use that. Maybe, forgive me if this is not the greatest example in the world, but you should do project assurance up front before you start. Don't leave it to halfway through, because that's when somebody like me will come in and tell you, you're going that way, you should have been going over there. But for the organisation of the tour today, everybody chose to go on the more exciting version. And that's what happens in business. People choose to go on the programme or the project that is more exciting. It's the one that might look better on their CV. Nobody wants to sit down and work through a benefit dependency matrix and work out whether the benefits are going to be delivered. But somebody organised a tour here. I'll say it was Michael. So he briefed them on what they wanted. He organised two people, the lead chap who did it, and the guy at the rear who was coming up behind to make sure none of us snuck off or stole a T-shirt or a shirt out of the changing rooms. He knew where to go. He'd got a route, so that route was pre-planned. He knew how long it was going to take. He knew that he had to get from there to there, talk about certain things at certain times, and bring everybody back in here so that they could be ready to listen to the chap who spoke before, Nigel. Yeah, so he knew that all that was on track, and that was him going round, and he'd got some level of assurance. Now, I'm sure one of us, probably me or any one of us, could go around and say, well, actually, I'd prefer it if we didn't go through the tunnel at that time. I'd rather we go somewhere else first, or I'd like to go around the other side of the stadium. But that's all part of what happens on a programme. You need to be able to understand where you've started from, where you're trying to get to, at what point. You need to manage the costs, you look at the resources. Have you got the right resources? Just echoing back what Mark was saying here, it is all about the people. And too often I'll quote a recent one, it was a housing association, so I don't know if anybody's here from a housing association, but I went in to do a programme assurance on that, and the first question was, what are you doing and why are you doing it? And just as I'm getting here, the response was stunned silence, because somebody had said, we need to do this. But nobody had asked, why do we want to do it? Are we doing the right thing? Have we got everybody in place? Again, with going back to the tourism and the marine thing that Mark mentioned as well. They'd assumed because a building company or somebody else had this system or this process, it was going to work for a housing association. But they just brought two housing associations together. One did it A to B, the other did it F to C. So they all did it different. They all did it backwards or forwards or sideways. But nobody went in and checked how they were going to do that. The other main problem that they had, because they hadn't done any project assurance up front, was this is going to be a fundamental change to the whole way this organisation works. So it's sponsored by IT. It's led by the CTO. Business, you can get involved as and when we decide it's appropriate, you can get involved. So they got a black mark from day one. It was wrong from the word go. And the other thing I would say is, the definition of what assurance is. It's a positive declaration of an intended outcome. So you need to know what you're trying to do, how are you going to approach it, and how are you going to measure it. So what's the objective? What are the major goals and milestones you're going to achieve? So describe what you want to do, put some measures in place, big measures, then describe the strategies you're going to take to achieve those measures, and then put the measures in place as well. So you've got a description, something that can be measured at a high level, some more detailed level of what you're going to use to achieve those interim milestones, and then the detail level of what you're going to measure. Because if you don't measure it, it won't happen. But assurance right from the beginning and all the way through can be a program director, program manager's role, but quite often it's useful to have an independent, objective viewpoint to come in and check on that as you go through.